out here chasing a feeling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Tara Martini, along with host Becky McNattin. We are glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
And a huge thank you to Amanda Sullivan for coming back on the show again this week. Welcome, friend. We're glad to have you here.
Thanks for
back.
having me.
I have been pumped about this show all week, you two. We like to promote self-awareness and insight on Feels Out Loud by giving people things to consider and think about today. We are focused on doing just that in a big time way.
Mm-hmm.
We're diving into the world of self-sabotage, everyone. And now self-sabotage involves behavior that undermines what we want in life. It occurs when our subconscious and conscious actions create obstacles that get in the way of our goals for ourselves. It is not necessarily something we notice in the moment. Often, we don't realize we're doing it. I would say frequently, we simply feel the consequences of it happening, but it has big-time implications for living life authentically, which is why we're bringing it up today. Limiting mindsets, beliefs, and habits can hold us back from doing what we want to be doing and being who we want to be. Why do you think we engage in self-limiting thoughts and actions, Tara?
Well, I think just as natural humans, we gravitate toward the negative right away. And so it's that idea of, well, what am I going to do to mess this up? Right?
Mhm.
Rather than just like, what is this goal I have? Or what is this that I want for life? Instead, it's, okay, I want those things, but
Yeah, you and I were just talking a
Yep.
couple weeks ago about how we're hardwired for the negativity bias.
we are. Well, it was survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that we may be engaging in self-limiting thoughts and actions
Mhm.
because of that
Correct.
hardwiring.
Yep.
Amanda, how would you say self-sabotage has been a part of your life? And are you aware? Are you aware of it as it's occurring?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes. I mean, this week preparing for the episode, I just constantly was like, oh, I'm self-sabotaging right now. That's cool of me. I think sometimes I'm aware of it, and sometimes it's like after the moment,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing, or that's what was happening. I think sometimes it's like back to the first question about like why. Sometimes it's self-protection, and sometimes it's a defense
Mhm.
mechanism, and sometimes it's subconscious. So I think that oftentimes it's playing out in real time and we don't even know.
Mhm.
Sometimes I know when I'm doing it actively. And other times it takes someone close to me being like, you realize that you were doing, whatever type of avoidance, which is a type of self-sabotage. And I'll be like, yeah, I was doing that, wasn't I? So I think that we all do it lots. And sometimes we're conscious of it if we're trying to build awareness around it. And sometimes it takes people to help us to be aware of
Mhm.
it.
It's a really good
For sure.
point that there are times where people in my life have highlighted externally to me. Two of them being people in this room, listeners. I think we've talked about how we in this room care about each other a lot, and I think sometimes our people highlight for us, oh, see, you're doing that again. And I don't necessarily know. That's where you're nodding at me too, Tara, that I would guess this is collective experience for us humans, that the self-sabotage behavior shows up so subtly.
Mhm.
It's because it is subconscious.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And from a space, I love that you said, Amanda, from a protective spot, that we're trying to do something to make ourselves okay. So we're not necessarily noticing it until we might see the negative consequence
Right.
that occurred from the thing. And sometimes even then, it still requires somebody else to say, so, okay, that happened because you were doing this thing. So through the show, listeners, we're talking about self-sabotage today, and we're going to talk about all kinds of aspects of self-sabotage and the role it might play in our lives. But I want you to be thinking about and maybe answer the following two questions. What self-sabotaging behaviors are present in my life right now? You don't have to go back very far.
We all just
Tara and I
think
could
of-
probably just think about this morning.
Yep.
So what self-sabotaging behaviors are present in my life? What thoughts, beliefs, complaints, and actions do I engage in that work against me?
Mhm.
Ponder those, hold them in your thoughts. We're going to be back in just a minute after the short commercial break, and then we're going to talk through self-sabotage and core reasons why we do it. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We'll be back in just a moment.
You gotta find the people. Express yourself.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Tara Martini, along with Becky McNattin. Let's dive right back into our discussion on self-sabotage.
Recently, I was talking with a friend of mine about revenge bedtime procrastination. To our listeners who don't know what I'm referring to, this is when we intentionally stay up late to enjoy personal time, even when we know it will impact sleep and our entire next day. It stems from a lack of control over our activities the next day. Maybe we loathe what is coming up tomorrow, and the sooner we go to bed, the sooner we feel like tomorrow comes, because it will be here as soon as we wake up. We take revenge on our awful or busy upcoming day by avoiding going to bed. But we completely get in our own way of making that already hard day even harder by also being exhausted.
Mhm.
So my friend and I are talking about this, and of course we laughed about it. It was pretty funny how we talked about the way this shows up for us and how we can even know that it's not a good choice, but we do it anyway. Have you two ever engaged in revenge bedtime procrastination?
All the time. Like 100% all the time. And I even think to myself, this is what you're doing.
Okay,
You
so
shouldn't be
yes, you
doing
know it.
that. I also think there's a different element to this concept as well, as if I didn't have a lot of control over that day that I just had, and it was filled with things where there was no self-care or, joy or whatever, I'll do this before bed to say, no, I'm doing this for myself.
Mm,
I get to, while not acknowledging
Mhm.
I'm going to lose sleep, I'm going to be tired the next day, and I'm setting myself up for a negative experience the next day,
right.
Totally.
where I do it all the time.
Yeah, the other phenomena we talked about was current self versus future self. So
Mhm.
our laughing about revenge bedtime procrastination led to this. Current self versus future self, overestimating our future self abilities. Yes, we think we will have more time, more capacity, more energy, even more skill later than we actually will. Our current self says, oh, I can definitely do that, of course. This leads to procrastination, overcommitment, and poor planning because our present self acts like our future self is a total superhero.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And when the actual circumstance shows up, we get very frustrated with ourselves because of the disconnect between our current self and future self. Do you two do this as well?
I literally did this week.
Okay.
Totally overcommitted. And I was like, I'll be able to handle all of that stuff that I have going on and then leave tomorrow morning on a trip.
All the
And-
things.
And I think this is one I think I do a lot. I think I am like, I can take on all this stuff. It's
Mhm.
going to be no problem. I have plenty of time.
Mhm.
And then all of the things that fall to the side are the things that I do to take care of myself. Right.
Yes.
So I definitely do this. I often overestimate how much I can take on, whether it's with work or personal life or things like that. And then end up being like, oh, why did I agree to do all this stuff?
Right.
Yes.
Well, and I think you bring up such a good point of then when we overcommit, the first thing we let go of is our self-care.
Yeah.
And so we're neglecting ourselves, and then the outcome is even more negative.
And then I engage in revenge bedtime procrastination as a result, right?
Yes.
And that current self versus future self often has core roots in people pleasing,
Mhm.
fear of missing out, seeking control or purpose. And I definitely do this
Mhm.
often, even knowing that what I'm planning might not be very feasible, but I get myself thinking that yes, I can do that. And then after this discussion, so a friend and I had this discussion, I got inspired about all things self-sabotage. And you might be wondering this too, listeners, from the questions that I posed in the first segment of the show. I wanted to read more. I wanted to understand what's at play, that we can be our own worst enemy. We get in our own way. We have goals and dreams, but may engage in behaviors that hold us back from achieving them. And people might think, right now, you might be wondering, why do we do this? Why would we take steps to not have a fulfilling life? And what a paradox here. We say we want something and then we ruin it. And that's a great point. If you're wondering that right now, super great point. It is odd, but our subconscious seeks to protect us, everyone. Amanda mentioned this just a few minutes ago. It acts in ways to keep us safe, even emotionally and psychologically. So self-sabotage aims to protect us from our fears, things we worry we will experience. And this is often rooted in shame, humiliation, or rejection. We all do things that get in the way of progress. Self-sabotage, though, is a pattern that can create its own problems and keeps us from living the way we may want to. How do you two think self-sabotage works against us?
I mean, I think it keeps us from being like our best, most authentic selves.
Mhm.
I think that it
Yeah.
often gets in the way of us being able to be the best version of ourselves, or the versions that we kind of like idealize ourselves being, or, you know, maybe reaching or achieving goals that we've set for ourselves. I think it can also really impact relationships. I think a lot of the ways self-sabotage comes up, plays out in a relational context that causes us maybe to engage in relationships in ways that are maybe detrimental to those relationships.
Very good point.
Very good point. And while I think it is grounded in something positive where it aims to protect, that's all lovely. But it's in the end, you end up feeling the shame and different things like that, where it is, in the end, we don't want that. We want a life that's fulfilling. But I don't think a lot of people take the time to go, what am I doing as a block to what I want?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's painful to do that.
It is.
It's so
very
much easier
difficult.
to blame our issues on the external, on
Mhm.
other people, on other problems, on other things, than it is to take accountability for the ways in which we are getting in our own way.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, you two, that it gets at these hidden benefits in staying stuck
Mhm.
that might be hard for us to acknowledge. You just mentioned maybe one of the hidden benefits of staying stuck is uh, avoiding taking accountability for ourselves of
Yeah.
where we are.
hmm
And also, it's just safe to stay as we are,
Totally.
right? There's something very safe and calming in that.
In thinking about that idea, I was wondering if you guys have heard about these studies that they've done around shocking people, and that
Yes.
knowing that there's a small chance of getting a painful electric shock leads to more stress than knowing that you will definitely be shocked.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yes, because the unknown is
because
the
of the
scariest
unknown is
thing.
the scariest part.
And it causes actual physiological stress. The unknown exactly is more scary.
Mm.
And so we avoid it.
That was a wonderful study to bring up because it is true. It is.
Yes.
That it is the terrifying unknown.
So let's
And not having control.
Yeah, so let's talk about some types of self-sabotage. I referenced a few just a couple minutes ago, but we're going to talk through categories here. So we may see on social media, we talked about two kind of specific things recently, but these are more categories.
Mhm.
Yep. So more general categories. So future assuming. A person who predicts the future and acts on those predictions before seeing if they come true. And it is kind of like the self-fulfilled prophecy. This can prevent them from taking actions as they believe how things will go. Therefore, I don't need to do this thing because I already know the result.
Mhm.
Maybe justification comes into play frequently in future assuming and allows excuses more space than our dreams, which, even though we're trying to avoid anxiety, we end up feeling more of it, people, because it activates our own feelings of helplessness and a lack of control.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, for example, someone's interested in a new job, but then they tell themselves, well, no one is hiring and there won't be any jobs available that fit what they're looking for.
Yes.
There's just this lack of attempt then to get what you want
Yep.
and become who you deserve to be.
Yeah, and exactly what you said in terms of self-fulfilling prophecy, we've now told ourselves
Mhm.
a thing that then we develop a belief about,
Mhm.
so we take no action, and then the thing happens.
Yes.
And what a great example to say, I'd really like a different job.
Mhm.
And now I've said to myself, this future assuming says nobody is hiring without knowing actually any information about that.
Right.
It may be something we've heard, but without looking into it or making attempts. And then we don't go get a different job, right?
Right.
Because we wouldn't take any action.
And we
Mhm.
sit in our current job, and 5 years later, we're still in that job going, wow, I'm miserable.
Mhm.
Oh, we didn't take that step.
Okay, so we also have in self-sabotage overthinking.
Yes.
Mm.
This
We don't
would
do that
be-
at all.
This would be someone who absolutely overthinks everything with a focus on particularly the negative or hardships. This lessens our confidence and increases self-doubt as our focus becomes on everything that could go wrong. Maybe we start overcomplicating solutions to problems Dang, I do this all the time. Thinking endlessly about options to find the perfect one.
Mm.
Or we worry and overthink about a topic without expecting ourselves to take action on problem solving. We keep thinking through an issue, but then don't take action to do anything about it. So we all laugh. Do anybody have any examples of this? How our brains might get us believing that overthinking is helpful?
Well, and I think, again, it goes back to previous episode and our last episode that I do think overthinking is grounded in safety and survival,
Yeah.
right? So we're overthinking of all the options, possibilities, because for safety purposes, what are my threats?
Mm-hmm.
But then when looking at it, okay, we look at all these things and then we're so overwhelmed by all of these things. That's what we're doing, not going, well, there could be some problem solving here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For
To
sure.
decrease those things happening.
One example I thought of with a lot of clients that I work with, I think is related to like dating and relationships. And I'm overthinking all of the things that could possibly
Mhm.
go wrong or be uncomfortable or create a barrier, and then I'm just going to avoid it instead of doing it. Or I'm going to overthink all of those things and then go in and be like totally on guard because I'm like
Yes.
anticipating all of these potential things that could go wrong and
Mhm.
overthinking the situation.
Well, and you're stealing so much joy from yourself
Mhm.
by doing that
Mm-hmm.
and missed opportunity. So, procrastination. This would be the one I do the most. Just calling myself out here. This involves delaying tasks, putting things off. Well, we just talked about bedtime,
Mm-hmm.
procrastination, wasting time, and gets us believing that we can only accomplish things by putting things off. This might also look like setting rules for yourself that you need to do all of something in order to be able to do
Mm.
anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that is so common for people of, I have to do all of this. I can't move on until, leads to an all or nothing mentality. And that all or nothing mentality can lead sometimes to that freeze mode. So for
Mhm.
example, if I can't clean the entire basement, well, I'm not going to do any cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or possibly deep cleaning your house when you have a massive work project due.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure none of us have done that.
Yes. And we see where the beautiful intention is there.
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
And how that completely makes it worse.
mhm.
And then you end up doing, literally happened to me this week. I procrastinated and waited until the very last minute to do something because I just didn't want to do it. Like it wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was avoiding the work and the discomfort and the annoyance of doing it. And then I was all flustered yesterday morning. And I told you guys I ended up locking myself out of my house because I procrastinated so
Yes.
much that I was in such a hurry. And then I created more problems
Right.
for myself.
Well, and there's that consequence piece.
Yeah.
Like then that happens.
Well, that's a fantastic example of talking about self-generated stress.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it's exactly.
That procrastination can frequently lead to self-generated stress. They are things that I think you of this moment says that wouldn't have even happened probably.
Right.
Had I not been in a spot where I was frantic,
Yeah.
I would have thought through things a little bit more. But when we have waited till, 11th hour, or we've done something to not do something else, now we are feeling like more stress than we did to begin with when we avoided the thing.
absolutely.
Yes.
And that's such a common
Yes.
end result.
Starting more projects than you finish, taking
Yeah.
care of low priority issues before the
Yep.
high priority one.
Yep.
Well, somehow, Terry, you and I ended up with things that are very us because the category, another category of self-sabotage is perfectionism.
Yes.
And that's setting completely unrealistic goals. You and I just talked about
Mhm.
that a couple of weeks ago, unrealistic expectations. And unachievable standards. It also involves seeing all of the things that could be improved upon in any given situation. Perfectionism has the ability to foster unfinished projects because things need to be perfect
Mhm.
in order to be completed. So there might end up being these unfinished things. It could also lead to overthinking, as we just
Just said.
mentioned, and scenarioizing about how to achieve perfection in situations. We have to think through how to do it perfectly. One iteration of perfectionism is this consideration of change without resources devoted to the change. It's like we think we even need to change perfectly. So like I want this thing to be different, but not thinking about how the clunkiness of change might occur.
Yeah.
Right.
So we need to even change perfect.
Right.
You expect to make changes in your life without setting aside any time or mental space to accomplish them.
hmm
Like, I'm just going to know how to do that thing.
Yep.
And possibly with perfectionism, you are only satisfied with 100%. So incremental change isn't good enough. Thoughts on this, you two?
I think this is so common for people.
Yeah.
It's that idea of, and I think the example you gave says it perfectly about you start a project and you're like, it has to be perfect. I'll get to it when I know I can do it perfectly.
Mhm.
And then that day doesn't come. And then you end up with 5 unfinished projects in front of you. And then you've created this mountain of stress for yourself that have physical and emotional repercussions.
Yeah.
So it's detrimental to.
Yeah, and certainly we could make some case between perfectionism and imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Definitely on being avoidant of starting anything new. Because if we can't be perfect at it,
Right.
Mhm.
that idea of change, that if I can't do it to 100%, I shouldn't even start it to begin with. And I
Right.
can
Yeah.
think about many times in my life where I have had a desire to know or do something, but the self-sabotage of perfectionism, if it can't be amazing at it
Yeah.
right away, I'm
Mhm.
not doing it at all.
Mhm.
All right, well, tell us about the next one.
Avoidance. So, this type of self sabotage involves refusing to step out of one's own comfort zone, not doing things that cause anxiety, and is focused on protecting self.
Yeah.
Well, funny that the last 2 were totally you guys, because
Yeah.
who is this one? Your girl right here.
We like to represent everyone.
Yep.
We sometimes might not even try in a situation in order to avoid embarrassment.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's so huge just for humans.
Yeah.
Avoidance can also come in the form of refraining from solving simple barriers to having pleasure or not addressing aspects of life that could lead us to feel calm or joy. And we
Mhm.
briefly spoke about that at the beginning of the episode. We're stealing joy from ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. So you said this is you. Do you have an example of avoidance?
Oh, totally. I think one of the big things for me is trying anything that's new.
Mhm.
Anything that would be something different, especially if I have to do it by myself. I would rather just not go. It's going to feel way too uncomfortable. Again, fear of judgment or fear of embarrassment,
Yeah.
feeling out of place in a new especially social situations. I would just rather I'm just not gonna,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I think another thing I see people do a lot is like avoiding hard conversations with other
Oh,
people.
yes.
Because we know the amount of discomfort that it's going to lead to for us, and it's easier just not to do it than it is to have a hard conversation and experience the discomfort that comes with it.
Yeah. And so an offshoot to that point, Amanda, an offshoot of avoidance is comfort zone fixation, which
Mm.
involves remaining in situations because they feel safe and familiar and not wanting to move outside of the space of security, even if it's miserable.
Which that part is astonishing.
So an example might be someone might take a job that really isn't going anywhere,
Mhm.
or avoid promotions because of the fear of responsibility or change or unknown. And we stay in circumstances that are the opposite of what we want because we desire what is comfortable.
Mhm.
Mm. And it is that sometimes feels easier
Totally.
and better.
And safer.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes. The next one is relationship sabotage, with Amanda kind of touched on in one of her examples. It's that in this area could involve pushing others away, avoiding intimacy, creating unnecessary conflict, ending relationships early due
Yeah.
to just that
Mhm.
fear of, well, I'm going to end it before I may be rejected, or choosing unsuitable partners we know aren't a good fit. With relational sabotage, someone might see their ability to change as dependent on other people's behavior.
Yes. I can only do this when you have already changed.
Right.
And then we have the self-critic. This is someone who constantly is analyzing their behavior and judging themselves about it. We've talked about the self-critic on the show many times.
Mhm.
People who engage in self-criticism tend to ignore evidence that's positive about themselves and highlight the negative. This type of self-sabotage may also include a need for control. Analyzing ourselves first might help us feel in control of feedback we receive later. We worry that if we might get that, if we tell ourselves first, it'll hurt a little less later.
Mhm.
How does the need for control show up in self-sabotage, you two?
I think it's the idea if we sit in the comfortable, then we have control,
Mm-hmm.
right? The minute we attempt to grow or take that risky next move, we become very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a really good point.
then it's like, oh my goodness, what do I do with this? I should
Mhm.
have just stayed in the comfort of my safe place before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Overindulging and punishing. I love how we both, Amanda and I, after every single one, we're like, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're not only one.
Yeah,
We
Right.
many
Yep.
of us do many of these.
Yeah.
So this focuses on lacking moderation and balance. It is an all or nothing behavioral loop. It
Yep.
could involve a denial binge cycle to pleasure and
Mm.
relaxation. For example, you say to yourself, you don't have time and can't see a friend for an hour one evening. But then at the same time, you stay up late watching Netflix every single night.
Yeah, or even that very night, you
Yep.
say, I can't do this thing, but I will then watch many, many hours of
Right.
this thing. And it's so interesting, this idea of denying ourselves joy and pleasure, that I wonder if we end up taking revenge against it.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like we get mad at ourselves for having denied ourselves the
Yep.
ability to have pleasure, like going and seeing a friend
Mhm.
and feeling good about something, that then we take revenge against that,
Mhm.
which would be an interesting exploration of the function of then the overindulging. And our last area of self-sabotage, continuous uprooting, highlights our subconscious interest in making constant change that won't allow for follow through toward commitment or goals.
Mm.
If we have new things we need to figure out all the time, we don't have any time to make progress on bigger goals or arenas of life that we want to focus on, because we always can tell ourselves, I have to get
Right.
I have to
I
get
have
this
this new
change done.
thing. Yes.
Yeah.
This could also involve being too busy to come up with processes or systems that would help us pursue our goals.
Mm.
So there's a function. Hey, everybody, there's a function in staying busy. Personal call out to myself there. Overall thoughts on these areas of self-sabotage, you two?
Well, I think it's
Nope, you go for
I
it.
just think it's so interesting to sit and reflect on maybe the ways that I do these things that I didn't even really realize were self-sabotaging.
Sure.
And just sitting with like, what does that mean? And this last one, yes, definitely staying busy. I think that would speak to a lot of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the function of staying busy.
Right.
Then we can tell ourselves, well, I have too many things going on to tackle that large dream
Right.
that I have, or that life goal that I have of doing this thing.
Right. Well, and I think also staying busy functions as a distraction from, again, things that are uncomfortable or,
yes, or
being with
deeper.
ourselves.
Yes.
All sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
So
What
I
are your
think-
thoughts, Tara?
I think all of these things we can all relate to in some sense. I think the way it has been presented, like Amanda, you saying, taking that next step and going, oh, well, there's the why we do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And to have that step toward, realizing a stronger sense of self,
Yep.
I think is huge. And so in some ways they do, function in protecting us, but in other ways we're looking at it, realizing it does disserve us more.
Mhm. So we're three therapists who sit in the field of the conscious and the subconscious. We came up with 8 core reasons for self-sabotage, and I'm going to read the 8, and then I want to hear what you two think about
Okay.
them. We've mentioned the first one many times on the show already thus far, fear.
Mm.
Core reasons for self-sabotage, fear. And I would say the rest of them are sort of summed up in this one word too. Fear can show up in all sorts of ways. It is a highly powerful emotion and psychological experience. Fear is our protector. And as I mentioned earlier, fear aims to keep us safe. It tells us things that we need to do in order to do just that, keep us
Mhm.
safe. Even if our brains are set on goals and we have plans for ourselves, fear comes in appearing as this massive voice of reason and tells us all the things about why we should consider some alternatives. So, second reason then, that leads to the second one, fear of failure and fear of success. We have both, everybody.
Mhm.
Unconscious belief that we can't handle it either way.
Mm.
We avoid taking risks that could lead to success. We truly do. We purposefully fail or undermine efforts. Third one, our core interest in having things stay the same. You
Mhm.
mentioned this,
Yeah,
Sarah.
it's safe.
We call this in the therapeutic world homeostasis, wanting what is familiar and resisting change. The fourth core reason, low self-worth and low self-esteem, doubting our abilities and telling ourselves that we are undeserving of success. Truly undeserving of success, that we don't deserve positive outcomes, and it might cause us to underperform or self-neglect. That leads to the negative core beliefs. This
Mhm.
gets at the idea that we can want things in our lives and maybe even have goals around them, but when it comes down to it, we don't believe that we can have or even achieve them to be or get things that we desire.
Mhm.
Need for control. It's the sixth thing. Trying to manage anxiety, but controlling every outcome and perhaps sabotaging the variables that we can't.
Mhm.
So anxiety really is an offshoot of fear, but that is
Right.
number 6. 7, unresolved trauma. Sometimes our self-sabotage is coming from past coping tools that don't serve us any longer, but did.
Mhm.
And that would be a space for exploration in a therapeutic spot. And the last one, different types of therapists would maybe answer core thoughts
Right.
about or core reasons for self-sabotage differently. Listeners, us therapists have whole classes on different theories that would have various things to say about what drives our sabotaging behaviors. But some of the things that people might say include unconscious conflict from unresolved emotional needs in childhood,
Right.
unconscious guilt, a learned response that became habitual when a sabotage behavior provided relief from anxiety or fear,
Mm.
negative beliefs about self and distorted thinking patterns, and disconnect from true selves due to unmet needs or life experiences that have fragmented one's identity. And these are things that us therapists dive into deeply.
Mhm.
You two, thoughts on the list?
I think this is a great list. I think one of the things that stuck out to me was the negative core beliefs. And I've probably talked about negative core beliefs on every episode I've come on because that is part of how I, as a therapist, am trained.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the self-sabotaging behaviors have to do with a sense of like worthiness or enoughness.
Mhm.
Like when you were talking about perfectionism, that especially stuck out to me. Like, well, am I not doing something because it won't be good? And then is that reinforcing that I'm not good enough?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
So
It's a very good point.
yeah, I think this is a great, very comprehensive list. And again, I think it could be any of these things.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts,
Sure.
Tara?
I think one of the ones that stood out to me that I think listeners may go, wait, what did you just say? Was the fear of failure and a fear of success.
Mm-hmm.
We so often talk about the fear of failure
Yeah.
and what we do to self-sabotage, but
Yeah.
also there's that fear of success. I'll often talk with clients about this, the idea of fear of success, and that whole idea of, but what if you have the skills and the ability to succeed? And then there's that fear of, yeah, I know, but then what?
Totally.
And that then what
Mm-hmm.
is where the fear and the unknown comes to. Because if I succeed on something I've been trying for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
well, then that unknown is out there.
Yeah. And we get ourselves maybe wondering, will I be able to handle whatever that success looks like?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You and I did a show a long time ago on foreboding joy
Hmm.
that then it feels safer to not get the success. Then
Yep.
we can always wonder,
Yes.
but the knowing that we couldn't handle the responsibility or the skill that was needed at that time, or we were promoted to a space of incompetence,
Hmm.
that is so scary. And so we say, well, then let's not do it.
Right. So then,
Mhm.
yep, let's just not, even though, yeah, we need to allow ourselves.
And so if listeners, you can think about those 8 areas really are focused on this idea of fear and anxiety that can show up in all sorts of ways. If you notice the self-sabotaging behavior, know what's underneath that is fear of things like humiliation, rejection, and shame.
Mhm.
And of course, I have big bias, but I don't think telling ourselves to not feel fear is the way out
No.
of
Mm-mm.
noticing and responding to self-sabotage. If we could tell ourselves, stop it,
Mhm.
I think we would just do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if you think about in your own life, when someone is hurting or afraid, telling them don't be afraid doesn't usually make the feel go away.
No.
So, Tara, will you tell us how to notice and respond to self-sabotage?
Well, here's the deal. The first thing, which we talk about, I don't know, maybe 12,000 times on the show, is be curious.
Yeah.
Self-sabotaging.
With love.
Yes, yes. Lead with love and curiosity. Self-sabotaging thoughts tend to be closed-minded and not curious.
Yeah. They're statements.
Mm.
Yeah. So ask yourself a few questions. Is this working for me?
Mm.
Am I living my values? Number 2, what patterns am I seeing that have a negative impact on my life? Number 3, what is my resistance to change and how is this showing up?
Good question.
The last one, what am I fearful of? And we're not talking like snakes and different things like that. I mean, getting very deep with yourself to your core and asking yourself, what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
Am I afraid of rejection from others? Am I afraid of not being enough? Am I afraid of the unknown that we just mentioned? Am I afraid of being alone?
Yes.
The list could be long here, but developing awareness of our fears allows us to respond with thoughtfulness and intention. And that's that whole self-compassion.
Yeah.
Yes. Next one, be kind to yourself. This involves noticing what is occurring and then responding with kindness and not judgment.
Yeah.
Again, a common thing we've talked about. And for sure, this includes setting realistic goals for change. So then you're setting yourself up for success, picking one small area to focus on and being very specific about what you might do differently. This also means noticing progress as well as the problems, which is a huge part of it because it's let's look at the problems. And then if this happens again, how can I adapt to that? And the next one, lean into discomfort, which everybody in the audience right now went,
Yeah.
"Ew, thank you.
Nope.
And we're done for today."
Yep.
But yes, lean into it. It's okay to sit in your discomfort. And lastly, reframe your strengths to help.
Well, I love those, Tara, because of course I'm a question person in my
Yes.
life. That to realize when you notice self-sabotage, because this might be in the moment where something's already occurred. Like Amanda, maybe don't do it when you are currently locked out of your house, but when you
Right.
figured out a way
Yeah.
to get back in.
Yeah.
And you realize self-sabotage was maybe at play on procrastination or
Yep.
avoidance. You sort of mentioned that in the show. To then ask yourself, is this working for me?
Yeah.
I think you would maybe say no, but am I living my values? What patterns am I seeing that have a negative impact on my life? What is my resistance to change? How is this showing up? And I love that fourth one. What am I fearful of? What am I afraid of? And although the subtle nature of getting locked out of the house is maybe not one that would cause you to say, what are my deep core fears
Right.
about the world around me? But it's such a beautiful example of, yes, that is a daily life operationalizing
Yeah.
of some kind of core fear that showed up as procrastination
Yep.
or avoidance. And so to ask ourselves, what am I actually afraid of? What am I worried will happen? Or what am I worried won't happen? What am I scared about finding out? And that was present for you. So that you said, Tara, to be asking ourselves after the fact, maybe in a stable spot,
Yes.
when
Yep.
we notice that the self-sabotage happened, that we ask these questions as a reflection, a very intentional reflection, while being kind to ourselves and not just saying quit it.
Yes.
Self-sabotage doesn't just stop because we say it needs to. And that you mentioned leaning into the discomfort. It's going to feel uncomfortable to even acknowledge the self-sabotage.
For sure.
The self-sabotage by itself is saying this works. This is what we need to be doing to keep ourselves safe. So that by itself is going to be uncomfortable. Right? And then reframing our strengths to help. Love this so much. Well, right now we are headed to a commercial break, but when we come back, we will talk through questions from you all, our listeners. Feels Out Loud will process your questions and thoughts in just a moment.
Find yourself. You gotta find the people.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or topics for each week that you'd like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. And of course, follow us on social media as well. We really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
Thank you, everybody, for sending in your thoughts about self-sabotage. We join you in the personal call-outs on spaces of self-sabotage, things that you have been engaging in recently that are self-sabotage. We are chuckling today because that's sometimes all we can do is laugh at it. We understand the seriousness of this and sometimes what occurs. And so one of our listeners had a statement that they said to us that I thought really reflected a question. Listener said, the idea of changing my behavior seems overwhelming. I hardly even notice self-sabotage until I feel awful because I did it. And I want to say thank you to this listener for saying changing behavior seems overwhelming.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not even noticing self-sabotage until you feel awful because it occurred. We join you in that. I can think of many moments in my life that we could have spent an entire show just highlighting our own spaces of self-sabotage, that we feel bad when it occurs because it is usually very incongruent with what we believe. When we just talked about values, things that we very much uphold, the end outcome is not that thing. So what would you two say to this person?
I think the first thing I would say is just to work on having more compassion for yourself, which is what I say to people about lots of topics.
Yeah.
But again, understanding, kind of reflecting on everything we've talked about today, that there's a reason for this. And if you can kind of understand the reason and respond to that part of yourself that has fear with more compassion and more understanding, that might lessen the intensity of it.
Sure.
The other thing I'm thinking is when it comes to behavior change, start small, start with things that feel feasible.
Yes.
And also enlist your support system. I think there's lots of times in my life, whether it's a therapist or a friend or a family member, that I'm like, hey, I need you to hold me accountable to making this change. And I think that has helped a ton in my own kind of unraveling of self-sabotaging behaviors.
Especially in having that external support, an idea around what an incremental change might be.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about aiming for smaller change, we are us. Having someone else weigh in and say, that might be a little unrealistic,
Right.
can be really helpful. What would you say, Tara?
Well, and also having that support system is going to help you feel like it's more manageable. I think going back to the statement or the question, first thing you can do also is looking at, where did the issues come up and how did I get there, or what patterns did I go back to that I used to have, and realizing they don't serve me anymore. But it's looking at, and which we have done today, is, hey, take a step back first and explore why and examples of self-sabotage, and then getting to, okay, this is the why. Then now you take the why, and then moving forward, you're educated with that to make it feel like it's more manageable, that I can take on this change.
That makes total sense because you know a little bit more about it, what the change might even need to be.
Right.
When you understand the maybe or root cause or purpose of something, we can more importantly address or accurately address what do we need to change. There's a quote by Kim Engel that says, instead of pushing uncomfortable emotions away, breathe through them and allow them to be with you. We did a show just last week about yoga and mental health. Of course, we have big bias here in the room about your breathing, that breathe into the discomfort and the uncomfortable feelings as well. We're already at the end of our show for today. Thank you for listening again this morning. Join us next week as we process more mental health focused topics, everyone. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember, connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
Some do, some don't.